The crowd gasped as Emma's lips met Jake's. What started as a desperate ploy to make her ex jealous had transformed into something neither of them expected. But how did a single father who hadn't dated in years end up in this moment? Let me take you back to where it all began. If you're enjoying this story, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more heartwarming content like this. The autumn air carried a crisp chill as Emma Chen hurried into the crowded hotel ballroom. The corporate charity gala was in full swing, crystal chandeliers casting a warm glow over the sea of elegant attire and polished smiles. As marketing director for Meridian Technologies, Emma had organized this event down to the last detail, but tonight her mind was elsewhere. She spotted him immediately. Richard Harlow, her ex-fiancé of 3 months, looking infuriatingly handsome in his tailored suit. Worse, he wasn't alone. The woman beside him, tall, blonde, and laughing at something he said, was his new girlfriend, the same one he'd left Emma for after 5 years together. Emma's stomach tightened. She'd known Richard would attend, his investment firm was a major donor, but seeing him happy while she was still piecing herself back together felt like salt in an open wound. She'd spent hours getting ready, determined to show him exactly what he'd lost, but now her confidence wavered. Champagne, Miss Chen? A waiter appeared at her elbow. Thank you. She accepted the flute gratefully, taking a larger sip than was probably appropriate. As she lowered her glass, she caught Richard looking her way. He whispered something to his date, and they both glanced over. The blonde's eyes swept over Emma's dress with a dismissive look that made Emma's cheeks burn. Across the room, Jake Sullivan was having his own uncomfortable evening. As the new head of software development at Meridian, he'd been strongly encouraged to attend tonight's gala. Social events weren't his forte, especially since becoming a single father 3 years ago when his wife walked out, leaving him with their daughter Lily. Jake tugged at his tie, feeling out of place among the corporate elite. He'd much rather be at home in worn jeans, helping Lily with her science project. His babysitter had already texted twice with questions about bedtime routines. He checked his watch, only 2 more hours of mandatory networking to endure. Emma circulated through the crowd, playing the perfect hostess despite the knot in her stomach. Each time she glimpsed Richard, her professional smile faltered. When she saw him leading his date to the dance floor, something inside her snapped. She couldn't bear the thought of watching them sway together while she stood alone. In desperation, she scanned the room and spotted Jake standing awkwardly by the bar. They'd met briefly during meetings but hadn't spoken much. He seemed nice enough, tall with kind eyes and a reserved demeanor. Most importantly, he was alone and reasonably attractive. Before she could reconsider, Emma marched toward him with determined steps. "Dance with me," she said abruptly, her voice low and urgent. "My ex is watching. The reward is a kiss." Jake blinked in surprise, nearly choking on his drink. "Excuse me?" Emma leaned closer, her perfume enveloping him. "Please." "The man in the navy suit by the dance floor, he left me for that woman he's dancing with. I can't let him think I'm miserable without him." Jake glanced over her shoulder at the couple. The man had the smug look of someone who thought too highly of himself. "You can do better," Jake said simply. Emma's eyes widened at his unexpected response. "What?" "I said, you can do better than using me to make someone jealous." Jake's voice was gentle but firm. "And you can definitely do better than him." Emma's carefully constructed facade cracked. No one had spoken to her with such honest directness in months. Her friends had been walking on eggshells around her since the breakup, and her colleagues were too intimidated by her position to be candid. "I'm sorry," she whispered, mortification replacing desperation. "That was completely inappropriate. I don't know what I was thinking." Jake studied her for a moment, then set his drink down. "I'll dance with you," he said, "but not to make anyone jealous. Just because it seems like you could use a friend right now." He extended his hand, and after a moment's hesitation, Emma took it. As Jake led her to the dance floor, he added with a small smile, "And you can keep the kiss. I don't accept payment for basic human decency." The band was playing a slow jazz number as Jake placed his hand respectfully on Emma's waist. He wasn't a particularly skilled dancer, but he moved with a natural rhythm that made it easy to follow his lead. "I'm Jake Sullivan, by the way. Software development. Emma Chen. Marketing." She managed a genuine smile. "Though I guess you already knew that since this is my event." "It's impressive," Jake said, glancing around the ballroom. "My daughter would love all these decorations. She's going through a sparkly things phase." "You have a daughter?" Emma asked, grateful for the distraction from her own drama. "Lily. She's 7 and currently convinced she'll be the first person to build a rocket to Mars using recycled materials from our garage." Emma laughed, the sound surprising her. It had been weeks since she'd laughed without forcing it. "She sounds wonderful." "She is," Jake said, his expression softening. "Though her ambitions keep me busy. Last weekend involved an experiment with baking soda and vinegar that I'm still cleaning up." As they continued dancing, Emma found herself relaxing. Jake was easy to talk to, his conversation refreshingly free of corporate politics or hidden agendas. When he spoke about his daughter, his entire face lit up with pride and love. "What about you?" he asked. "Any kids?" Emma shook her head. "No. Richard and I always talked about starting a family someday, but his someday never seemed to arrive." She glanced over at her ex, surprised to find she didn't feel the same stab of pain. "I guess that should have been a sign." "His loss," Jake said simply. The song ended, and Emma expected Jake to excuse himself, his good deed done. Instead, he asked, "Would you like another dance? Or maybe some air? You've been working this room for hours." Emma hesitated, then nodded toward the terrace doors. Air would be nice. Outside, the night was cool and quiet. Stars dotted the sky above the city lights, and Emma took a deep breath, feeling the tension in her shoulders ease. "Thank you," she said. "Not just for the dance, but for, I don't know, being decent when I was being ridiculous." Jake leaned against the stone balustrade. "We all have moments we're not proud of. Breakups have a way of bringing out the worst in people." "Voice of experience?" "You could say that. When my wife left, I spent 6 months being angry at the world before I realized the only person I was hurting was myself." "And Lily?" Emma studied his profile in the dim light. "That must have been hard, raising a child alone." "It was. Still is sometimes." Jake turned to face her. "But it taught me what matters. And it's not what other people think, especially exes." Emma smiled ruefully. "I wish I could say I've learned that lesson." "You will," Jake said with quiet confidence. Tonight was just a setback. They talked for nearly an hour on that terrace, long after Emma should have returned to her hosting duties. Jake told her about his journey as a single father, the challenges and unexpected joys. Emma shared her passion for marketing and her dream of eventually starting her own agency. When they finally returned inside, Richard and his date were leaving. He nodded curtly in Emma's direction, but for the first time since their breakup, Emma found she didn't care what he thought. As the evening wound down, Jake helped the staff clear some tables despite Emma's protests that guests shouldn't be working. "I'm just a guy helping out," he insisted. "Besides, the sooner this place is organized, the sooner you can go home and kick off those heels that I'm guessing are killing you by now." Emma laughed. "Is it that obvious? You've been shifting your weight for the last 20 minutes. I recognize the look from my sister's wedding." When the last guests had departed and the cleanup was well underway, Jake walked Emma to her car. "Thank you again for tonight," she said. "You turned what could have been a disaster into something nice." "It was my pleasure," Jake replied. "Literally. I was dreading this event, but I actually enjoyed myself." Emma hesitated, then took out her phone. "Would it be completely inappropriate if I asked for your number?" "Not for work reasons." Jake's smile reached his eyes. "Not inappropriate at all." They exchanged numbers, and as Emma drove home that night, she realized she hadn't thought about Richard for hours. Instead, her mind kept returning to Jake's kind eyes and the way he spoke about his daughter with such love. The following week, Emma found herself sitting in a casual pizza restaurant across from Jake and Lily. The little girl had her father's warm brown eyes and an infectious enthusiasm for everything from space exploration to the proper way to eat pizza, crust first, so you save the best part for last. "Dad says you make commercials," Lily said, carefully picking a mushroom off her slice. "Something like that," Emma replied. "I help companies tell people about their products." "Could you make a commercial for my Mars rocket when I finish it?" "Absolutely," Emma said seriously. "Every Mars rocket needs good marketing." Jake watched their interaction with a smile. When Lily excused herself to examine the restaurant's gumball machine, he leaned forward. "Thanks for being so good with her." "I don't usually. I mean, I haven't dated much since her mom left." "Is that what we're doing? Dating?" Emma asked, surprised by how much she hoped the answer was yes. "I'd like it to be," Jake said. "If that's okay with you." Emma thought about how different this felt from her relationship with Richard, the constant pressure to impress, to be perfect, to fit into his world. With Jake, she felt like herself. "It's very okay with me," she said. Their relationship developed slowly over the following months. Jake was careful about Lily's feelings, introducing Emma gradually into their lives. Emma discovered she loved their weekend adventures, hiking trails, science museums, and backyard experiments that often ended with all three of them laughing and covered in something sticky. At work, they maintained professional boundaries, though their colleagues quickly noticed the change in Emma. The sharp edges that had defined her since her breakup with Richard softened. She smiled more, listened better, and even left the office at reasonable hours. 6 months after the gala, Emma sat on Jake's back porch watching him and Lily attempt to launch a model rocket. When the small projectile finally soared into the blue sky, Lily's triumphant cheer made Emma's heart swell with affection. "We did it." Lily raced over, throwing her arms around Emma. "Did you see how high it went?" "I did." "It was amazing," Emma said, hugging her back. Later, after Lily had gone to bed, Jake and Emma sat together on the porch swing. "She hugged me," Emma said quietly. "That's the first time she's done that." Jake took her hand. "She's falling in love with you," he said. "Just like I am." Emma's breath caught. They hadn't said those words yet, though she'd felt them growing inside her for weeks. "I love you too," she whispered. "Both of you." Jake leaned in, his kiss gentle and full of promise. As Emma melted into his embrace, she thought about that desperate moment at the gala when she'd offered a kiss as a reward for making her ex jealous. How strange that the universe had brought her something so much more valuable instead, a man who saw her at her worst and still believed she deserved better. 1 year after they met, Jake proposed on the same hotel terrace where they'd first really talked. Lily was part of the proposal, holding a handmade sign that read, "Will you be my bonus mom?" Emma said yes through happy tears, knowing that what had begun as an attempt to salvage her pride had become the most authentic relationship of her life. At their wedding, during their first dance, Jake whispered in her ear, "Remember when you offered me a kiss to make your ex jealous?" Emma laughed. "Not my finest moment." "I disagree," Jake said, spinning her gently. "It was the moment that brought you into our lives. I'd say that makes it pretty fine." As they danced, Emma caught sight of Richard among the guests, a courtesy invitation she'd extended in the spirit of closure. He raised his glass in acknowledgement, and Emma nodded back, feeling nothing but gratitude for the path that had led her here. Sometimes the wrong turns in life lead us exactly where we need to be. Emma had wanted to show her ex what he was missing, but instead discovered what she had been missing, a love based on acceptance rather than performance, and a family built on genuine connection rather than obligation. As Jake dipped her at the end of their dance, Emma knew with absolute certainty that she hadn't settled for less, she had found something infinitely better than what she'd lost. And that's how a desperate request for a dance changed two lives forever. Sometimes the most beautiful love stories begin in our most vulnerable moments. If this story touched your heart, please like and subscribe for more content that celebrates the unexpected ways love finds us when we least expect it.